With the latest version of Iron Bank's gifts, we saw a slight rework to how it works, with it going from a fixed set of rewards to one where you can select exactly what you want from all of different things, like we've seen with, say, Lair of Flames in the past. And rewards generally just across the board have been juiced up a fair bit. So I've already bought it on my main account, so I can't show it here. So I have a secondary account set up to show it. So a key difference straight away is with the previous system, you could only buy it in the first 2 days of this releasing. So Iron Bank's Gifts is one of the very few events in the game which has a fixed schedule. It always releases on the 10th of the month. It's just one of those where you can predict its release and plan ahead for it. Previously, if you didn't buy it on, I guess, the 10th or the 11th, you could no longer buy it for the rest of the full duration of it. So if you got to say the 15th, 16th, like here, you'd no longer be able to buy this. Now you can buy it at any point throughout its duration, so it's much easier to buy into because of that, just because there's a bit more flexibility. Its price is unchanged, and that is very nice when you look at the new rewards inside of it. So there are 2 tiers of rewards here. There are 20 premium rewards, where you can only pick 14 of them. So you effectively have to cut 6 of these up here. And then you can pick 1 of these 3 as the legendary reward, which you will get on that 15th day. So just as a comparison to how this used to be, I have down here the previous set of gifts. So you can see what I mean with them just being juiced up a bit. So you can still get Reforge Ore, and you can get 1,000 Reforge Ore here, where it was only 500 previously. So you could get Ancient Scriptures, but it would only give 20, and a total of 60 across the course of the event. There are 2 options for Ancient Scriptures here, for 80 each, so 160, which is more than double T5 books than you'd be able to get previously. The SS medals down here, there were only 5 of them. Now there are 15. There are some very minor downsides, 10k less diamonds, you can't get the Royal Badge chests anymore, which were really good. The Battle Diamonds have been reduced by 10. The Epic tokens, or Epic medals there, have been reduced from 10 to 5. But across the board, this is way, way better, and you're going to get even more bang for your buck now with this than you would have previously. So obviously the question becomes, with your 14 picks here, which of these premium rewards do you pick? I think the best way I can show this is probably a priority list, because the thing is, obviously, what you go for isn't necessarily the same for every single account, because some accounts have T5s or don't have T5s, so Ancient Scriptures have usefulness to some players, but none to other players. Same with A Troop Appearance medals, S Troop Appearance medals. Maybe you're a new player and you don't have your refinement done. So I figured just a list going down exactly how I'd rank these would be useful to some, especially new players who need some of these things, which us players who've been playing for years at this point don't need. Because obviously, if you're cutting 6 and you've been playing for 5 years and you've been spending in that time as well, you're not going to need the T5 books, you're not going to need the tech scrolls, you're not going to need the refined draft, you're not going to need the A Troop Appearance medals. That's just 6 cut immediately. So it's quite an easy choice in that sense, but if you still need these things, it gets a little bit more tricky. So I think the way to list this is somewhat in 2 lists. So you have your universal must picks. So these are things which are just no-brainers for everyone, regardless of your account situation. For me, the number 1 is going to be Valyrian Steel. So even if you don't have T5s, I think this is the best thing in here. There is 60 million Valyrian Steel in here. For context, the 50 BD pack of this, which releases on Tuesdays, gives 30 million Valyrian Steel. So this by itself is almost making up for the price of Iron Bank by itself. The reason I have it so high prioritized is Valyrian Steel is just very awkward to get. It's a real bottleneck material, which, if you're building significant amounts of T5s, you're going to have to buy with Black Diamonds, because the steel you get from the Battle and Bravery token shop just won't be enough to make millions and millions. So that for me would be the main priority in there. But then speeds, everyone can use speeds. Reforger, same thing, everyone can use Reforger. Friendship chests, diamonds, and now actually dragon marks. Previously, they would have been fairly irrelevant, but now obviously with the Dragon Advanced system, I've made multiple videos on this. You need hundreds of thousands of dragon marks, so any of these you can pick up where you can is always going to be a good thing at the moment. Now, past this point, it becomes, do you still need this stuff in your account? So it's a little bit more tricky at that point. It becomes sort of a secondary list below these. So I would do ancient scriptures, and then the second ancient scriptures, obviously. 160 T5 books for 200 BD is actually, in a vacuum just by itself, very, very good efficiency. So my pack efficiency sheet here just to show that. And you can see here on this column, this is the new Iron Bank in terms of efficiency. So it's actually more efficient than the Amethyst Shop, the weekly card, and basically Merchants of King's Landing. It's better than some tiers, worse than the second tier, but considering you have to buy the first tier to get to this, and the averages beyond that, you can basically say it's better than Merchants of King's Landing as well. So in terms of a consistent monthly release for a significant amount of books, this new version of Iron Bank is basically the most efficient way of buying them in the entire game. So if you are chasing T5 still, and you're a low to mid spender, this honestly might be the best thing in the game currently to buy, because the efficiency you're getting for the T5 books alone is incredible, but you're obviously also getting everything else on top of it. As I mentioned previously, being able to stack the steel preemptively is really gonna pay off in the long term, because you are gonna need it. Then after that, I would do the SS medals. Again, this is another one I can show the efficiency of. So it's 15 SS medals for 200 black diamonds, obviously. I don't have that written out here specifically, but you can see it's the equivalent value of the fourth pack in the harvest season progression, which is one of the better packs out there. Obviously, normally this will be discounted by itself, so its efficiency will go down, but again, for the SS medals, this is in and around one of the more efficient ways of actually obtaining it in the game currently. So that will be high priority and must pick if you still need them. Then it will be equipment selection chests. 300 is a very good amount of these. You can make good progress on your PvP gear, your Kingsguard if you still need that, or your Mountain Clan gear, which a lot of people are still grinding towards gold, as it requires a lot of these chests over a long period of time. And then I would do it as the A medals and then the S medals. The reason A is just slightly above is because 100 compared to 30 is just in a slightly higher ratio than these normally distributed. And then we start getting to the much less interesting stuff, and I will list it as Battle Diamonds, Outstanding, Commander Selection Chests, Blessing Stones, Honor Banners, Epic Tokens, Refined Rough, and finally the Tech Scrolls, which I think everyone still university agrees are pretty much useless, because the fact they don't count towards events, so you can't get anything back for the usefulness of finishing those researches, and most people have such an excess of research speeds anyway, unless you're a very, very new account where they might have a bit more value than my list has here. So that would be my list in full, which means if you need absolutely everything, your cutoff point would be that. So you'd lose the Blessing Stones, Honor Banners, Epic Tokens, Refined Wrath, and Tech Scrolls. I think that is the right cutoff point when considering the quantities you're getting of these and the usefulness of these things that fall off the list. Obviously, as you go down, you don't need A medals, you don't need S medals, you just add in Blessing Stones, Epic Tokens, stuff you can actually get some usefulness out. That would be how I would prioritize it myself. Next up, you have the Legendary Reward. So I think the best way I can visualize this is 30 SS medals. Again, if we look back here, as I realize I got the quantities mixed up when I last talked about this, obviously, Harvest Pack 3 was what I meant to refer to there. This final pick is the one that's the equivalent value to the fourth tier of Harvest Season. So considering that self-discounts itself, you can view that as somewhere between 250 and 500 black diamonds worth of SS medals, which is pretty good. The health badges can't really have a BD value allocated to them other than just the 200, but what you're buying here is more the rarity of them and how hard they are to obtain, especially if you're trying to grind 8 health badges for one unit type, and you need 32 of these, which is what, approaching 3 years of Iron Bank rewards. If that is something you're working towards and you're willing to buy the Ancient Dust to achieve it, I think you're going to have to keep buying these. That's what I've done on my own account, just because this is the only way you can actually obtain them. That isn't a goal, though. The Ancient Army skill fragments are quite an interesting pick when you actually look at the efficiency of them. So it's 30 fragments. I made a video previously on the drop rates of the Dragon Raffle. You can see here 10 rolls will average out over a sample size of thousands of spins to be 3.5 fragments on average. When you multiply that up to get to 30, obviously, 30 fragments, if you're taking out the stage rewards, is the equivalent of about 85 keys in the Dragon event, which as a black diamond value, obviously hugely just surpasses the black diamond value of these SS medals. I mean, the first pack for them, I think, is 50 black diamonds for 5, and that's as efficient as it gets. That alone is 17 of those packs, which is 850 black diamonds as a minimum value. And then as you buy up the higher tiers of that pack progression, it gets more and more inefficient. So if you're trying to be as efficient as possible and you're picking between these two, the Ancient Army skill fragments are significantly more efficient than the SS troop appearance medals will be. And for that reason, I'd only really pick between the legendary badge chests. If you're trying to grind those health badges to 8 golds for your unit type, or going for 8 reds, either that or the Ancient Army skill fragments. Especially if you are, let's say, in a top 5 alliance in the game, and you're just a low spender, and your role and stuff like AC is always as a filler, then there's a pretty good argument at that point to just go for the Army skill fragments and just boost up those dragon skills of yours. Yeah, all in all, this is a really nice change. I really like the Valyrian steel. Being able to get 60 million a month just as an add-on, really, on top of the battle and bravery token store, should mean that for pretty much everyone, unless you're mass building millions and losing millions, so you have to rebuild tons, this will be more than enough to sustain us through just building on stuff like training events and getting our numbers to a decent point to play events with. I think judging by the efficiency of everything when you look into it, I stand by that point that this is probably the best thing for low spenders who are still chasing T5s to buy in the game. Maybe the honor token is still better than it, but beyond that, what you get, the 200 black diamonds here, is very, very good value and a very nice change.